This week, I chat with Herbert Wolverson and Frank Borsik about Bufferbloat, Libri QoS, and remembering Dave Taht. You don't want to miss it, so stay tuned. This is FLOSS Weekly, episode 829, recorded Tuesday, April the 15th. This machine kills Vogons. It's time for FLOSS Weekly. That's the show about free, Libre, and open source software. I'm your host, Jonathan Bennett, and today we've got something, well, really fascinating that we're going to dive into, but it's not one of the things that we really wanted to talk about today. We wanted to talk about something else. And so I'm going to bring our guests on, and we've got Frank and Herbert, and these are a couple of the guys from Libri QoS, the Saving the Internet from Bufferbloat organization, basically. And today we're going to talk about Libri QoS, but we're going to remember Dave Taht. And if you don't know, Dave did pass about a month ago? It's been a little while now, right, guys?
April 1st was the announcement I got, but
April 1st. And so Dave lived in California. Dave was a huge space nerd, like I am, and I think like these guys are too. And was actually in Brownsville, Texas, and passed there. And from what we can tell of natural causes, the weird thing about dying outside of your state is the paperwork is terrible. So, like, we don't have all of the answers yet. We can tell you, though, even though the announcement was made on April 1st, it's not an April Fool's joke. I wish it were, but it's not. Dave Taht has passed. And so we don't want to make this a downer of a show, but what we want to do is talk about like the legacy, the Bufferbloat legacy, and some of the other things that Dave has done. Also talk about Libri QoS, where it's at now and where it's going, the neat things coming for the future, some of the exciting things that project has done. And so that's kind of what we're up to today. So like I said, we've got Herbert Wolverson, and I guess technically it's Frantisek Borsik, and you go by Frank?
Yeah, Frank is easier for any Anglo-Saxon word. And even for India, basically. So yeah, it works.
I can imagine. Did I get it at least reasonably close?
Absolutely. Okay. In the English pronunciation, I think it's the best you can do.
I'll take that. I get a lot of unusual to me names, and trying to get through them sometimes is it's a challenge. It's fun. All right, so let's I don't know, where do we want to start? Let's talk about what Libri QoS is. Maybe that's a good starting point. And let's see, Frank, you told me in your notes that you are the gopher for Libri QoS. Let's start there. What does that mean, and how did you get there, and what things do you go for?
Right. So I go for everything, basically. And I got this nickname when I was living in Iceland back then in 2013, 2014. And besides anything else, what I was doing there, I was also at the fishing boat. And I was helping the maintenance engineers to do all the fixes and stuff. And, basically the best thing that I was able to do was to fetch like all the things they needed. And I was going for everything, and they said that you are really good in that. And basically it stuck with me. And then I tried, like everywhere I was doing some work, I was trying to do the same. I was trying to help. To do things that nobody liked to do and don't want to do, and things like that. So I guess that's a really helpful role to do. And I have really good colleagues. They are rock stars. Dave was a rock star. Herbert is a rock star. Robert is a rock star. Even though like not many people know them yet, right? Mm-hmm. So I'm that one guy that want to help them shine.
Yeah, I remember being like a young teenager working with mainly my grandfather at the time, and I didn't know anything, and so that was my job. I was the gopher for a while, and the idea there was that you hang around long enough, you go for the right tools, and you kind of pick up, you learn as you go, and finally you get to the point to where you have a younger cousin that gets to be the gopher, and you get to actually work on this stuff.
Right. So maybe one day I will get my gopher as well.
Graduate from gopher school.
Right.
And then Herbert, we know you as the Rust guy. How do you fit in with Libri QoS, or do you? You are part of it, right?
I am. I'm the chief product officer,
Yes.
which we picked entirely because I wanted to be called C3PO. The background for this is that on top of teaching Rust and writing books about Rust, I've been helping out with an internet service provider in central Missouri for, I don't know, well over a decade now. And we're kind of a weird ISP that we don't actually make any money. Our mission is basically to reach out to the areas that nobody else can get to and get them the best service we can manage, because the part of Missouri I'm in has some seriously swampy areas that if you lay fiber, it just washes away. Areas that flood every year, areas that get hit by tornadoes every year. So aerial fiber doesn't work because the tornadoes take it away. Buried fiber doesn't work because you're in a swamp. And so you end up running a whole lot of wireless links, and that's what iZones does. And we fell afoul of serpentine Missouri tax law, and we tried to actually be public benefit, but so we're public benefit in what we do, but not on actual structure. And one of the terrible things about things like 10-mile long wireless links is that Bufferbloat gets absurd. And we'll talk about what Bufferbloat is in a bit, but I originally signed up with a product called Proseam that uses FQCuddle. That's how I first heard about Dave, and he actually didn't remember it, but I was lucky enough to run into him at a convention about that year. Then we didn't meet again for a while. And anyway, Robert started up Libri QoS around the time the pandemic was hitting, and really wanted to tackle the Bufferbloat situation to try and get even the people with not so good connections good usable internet, because suddenly everybody's at home. Every network is suddenly massively over capacity because everybody's at home, whereas previously you could reliably plan that 8 to 5 people go to work. In the evenings they watch videos, do home things. Well, now everybody's a business customer at home. Suddenly you have a lot less leeway. And he started Libri QoS with Dave. They put together a giant script initially that set up FQCuddle for everybody, and then Dave talked him into turning that into Cake, which is basically the next version of FQCuddle that adds a whole lot of bells, whistles, and works unbelievably well. And that's what got my interest. Was I saw them on GitHub. I said, hey, I could use this, and because I don't know, probably autistic, I sat down and basically wrote a Rust version in a week, shared it with Robert, and Robert showed me some of the pain points he had, like IPv6 wasn't working right, and he was having troubles scaling it up to multiple CPUs because of some bottlenecks in the Linux kernel. And so I worked closely with Robert and Dave, understanding what they needed. And Dave put me in touch with Taki, whose last name I just forgot.
Taki Høyland Jorgensen.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm actually really glad you said that, because that will never make it out unscathed. I apologize. But we patched a project called XDP CPU map and managed to make the Linux traffic shaping system use multiple cores. And all of a sudden, now we've got a system that can, scale up well beyond a gig. At the time we were celebrating having just hit 10 gigs. We patched in IPv6, which is quite important. The original setup couldn't do that, which was a real problem because Robert has IPv6. So we got that in, and then we were like, hey, this needs a GUI. So I sat down and wrote one. And Libri QoS 1.4 came out with bells, whistles, GUI, and it really took off, terrifyingly so. to the point that suddenly we were getting messages from parts of the world that I had to look up where they were. I think last time we checked, we're in 58 countries now, and most U.S. states. And the most recent version we're working on has a whole new GUI, because the first one was was also me learning JavaScript, and this time around it's a nice GUI. We're pretty proud of it. An optional paid stats backend system. We do a lot of stuff with that, but we've got to cover our hosting fees. So we're working on a self-hosted version, but at least for now that's in the cloud, because nobody wants to self-host something I'm updating 3 times a day.
Yeah.
Which I don't blame them. But the scale has absolutely astounded me. We've gone from celebrating 10 gigs to talking to a guy who's pushing 80 to 90 gigs a second every night through one of these boxes. It was one of Dave's real happy moments was, wait, this code I wrote can do 90 gigs? And it's like, we were doing basically a happy dance over Zoom on that one.
Yeah.
And so it's been an incredible ride. And, Frank doesn't do himself justice. If Frank wasn't reminding me in the morning to drink my coffee and reply to support tickets would never be replied to.
Yeah, so basically, Jonathan and like everybody listening, just this is the demonstration how a rock star actually Herbert is, and it's my pleasure. My pleasure to be part of it.
Yeah, it's I've gotten to be both of those roles throughout the years in various projects. Right now, I'm doing sort of an operations role. Technically, they're calling me CEO, but very much just taking care of operations where I'm at. And it's interesting. You call them a rock star. Your developers really do need somebody to help handle that paperwork stuff. It is extremely useful to not have to deal with it.
Yes, I like to take over anything that that's so your hourly rate is higher, for such nonsense. So it's really something like that. And
What's that? Both Dave and I would forget to put socks on in the morning if someone didn't remind us.
So, Frank, how did you come onto the Libri QoS project? How did you find it and decide it was something you wanted to be involved with?
Right. So I knew Dave through the VISPA events, ISP events in the US, and I was working with the router company, OpenWRT based company from Czech Republic. Tourists.
Oh, right.
Yes, and Dave really loved the product. So we started to talk. I was one of the people that got to the US in 2021 to Vispapalooza, and I was probably the only foreigner that managed to sneak in the US. And we talked a lot with Dave, and we find a lot of common ground. And he offered me a help with tourists, and he tested the router. He wrote a really great blog about how good Tourist Omnia is for the people, from especially from the security standpoint, because the tourists or the parent company CZNIC, they added a lot of security features like firewall and things like that are not a typical part of OpenWRT. And then in 2022, Dave told me about Libri QoS, and I understood that that's the missing piece that Dave was looking for, because most of the router companies, they will never accept, or most probably never accept FQ code on cake for many reasons. I want to stay nice, so I don't name the reasons why big companies that like to brag that they have the biggest buffers in the industry. They don't want to do that. They want to sell the newest 802.11 standard like every few years. They don't want you to have a router at home or in the office or in the stadium that will last 10 years. So
I remember, this is a bit of a rabbit trail, but I was actually in Ireland at an OpenWRT mini conference when the Turris Omnia, the first time I heard of it at least, was announced. And we all thought that it was just the coolest thing then. We were excited about it. I don't know. I don't think I ever got my hands on one of them. The price point wasn't quite what I was after for the small companies in Oklahoma that I was dealing with. But I remember it was the coolest thing that somebody was doing this, making dedicated hardware, like powerful hardware for OpenWRT.
yes,
It was exciting
and
at the time.
yes. So the goal was to have it like at least for 10 years. The typical router won't stand that much longer. So
Yeah, at the time, I was taking TP-Link routers, the little white UFOs from TP-Link. We were flashing OpenWRT on them and selling them to companies for, I think, $85 US installed, which was ridiculously cheap. Looking back on it now, it's like I was not charging enough for that I was doing.
Yeah. So basically, open source is really changing the world, and OpenWRT is one of the biggest examples, because it was just 3 people that started OpenWRT. Mm-hmm. One of them was from Hungary, one of them was from Canada, and the other was a US guy, if I remember correctly. I remember only the name of the Hungarian guy because he's my friend. His name is Imre Kaos, and he's still part of OpenWRT, and he's doing a lot of cool stuff. He's also a rock star, but most of the things that he's doing is under NDA, and you can say it out loud. But so these are the people that are changing the world, right? Starlink was built on OpenWRT.
Yep. I've got the guts somewhere over there on my junk shelf. I've got the guts of the version 1 Starlink router, where we were taking it apart and trying to figure out if we could put a newer OpenWRT image on it. I worked a little bit with Dave on that, actually. Not a whole lot. I ran out of time to really do much with it, but I know we were both poking at it at about the same time. Yeah, I think the first time I met Dave was when Doc Searles brought him on to FLOSS Weekly to talk about Bufferbloat, and that was really interesting. He had his I think it was a funnel and a pitcher of water in a funnel.
Yes,
and he
was
poured
pouring
it
down.
and yeah, we could see that. Oh yeah, you get a lot of water that stands up there. It doesn't make it through the funnel fast enough, and he shared that clip. We shared that clip all over the place. That was a lot of fun. That was kind of when I first met Dave and realized that he is one of my people, one of our people. He was a cool guy. We very much enjoyed having him on the show. Had him back several times throughout the years. Talk about various things. So let's see. With Libri QoS, it's like a toolbox for ISPs. That's really what it's made for, right?
Yeah, we started out very ISP focused because Robert and I both have wireless networks. We've been running into more and more people using it for different things: apartment complexes, university campuses, cruise ships. Cruise ships was the one that surprised me, but it does a great job of smoothing out satellite internet and giving the people on board a much better experience. It's honestly, I'm surprised by all the places that it keeps popping up. I've actually had people tell me they've heard of the project now, which is amazingly cool. I've got at RustConf somebody actually remembered me as Herbert, the Libri QoS guy, not Herbert, the guy who wrote the book on Rust. So I was like, hey, that's cool. From an ISP point of view, we were tackling one of Dave's major frustrations, which is we can't get every home user out there to run a good router.
Right.
And Dave's original plan was to make a nice router and basically give it to everybody on the planet so that we can stop buffer bloat that way. So the discovery that you could put something inline and have everything in the ISP go through it and do a good job of fixing everybody's buffer bloat all at once
Yeah.
was kind of, Dave's eyes lit up because he figured out, hey, I can do thousands of places at a time instead of having to go to everybody's house. Because Dave was a man on a mission. Dave was absolutely determined that Bufferbloat was going to be destroyed.
Let's dig into that. Let's dig into that part of this. First off, give us the quick definition. What is Bufferbloat?
Okay, so when packets come into routers or whatever's forwarding them, if there's any sort of congestion, so you can't immediately just pass it right through, then packets get queued up in a buffer. And so traditionally, when you've got more traffic than you have capacity, the buffer will eventually fill up and packets bounce off the back of it, just get randomly dropped. And the problem with this is that people solve that problem by getting ever bigger buffers, bigger and bigger and bigger. And now the transit time of your packet all the way through the buffer gets ridiculous. And it gets unfair as well because Johnny downstairs downloading the Call of Duty update is going to be 99% of that buffer. And Mary upstairs trying to make a video conference call for work is going to be 1% of that buffer, but all her packets have to wait because Call of Duty's in the way. And so she gets that dreaded, your video quality is unstable, things stutter, looks terrible. And so buffer bloat is your buffer is much bigger than it needs to be. And if you look at the round trip time of packets going through the system, there's actually an optimal amount of time for how long something should live in the buffer. So CUDL, the first algorithm that Dave worked on, introduced the concept of sojourn time, so measuring the amount of time that this packet has been buffered, putting it through an algorithm relative to approximately one round trip, and preemptively dropping packets if they've been in the buffer too long, and that as a result slows the Call of Duty download down a little bit, but makes room for everything else. So FQCuddle was the follow-up to that. In addition to sojourn time, it added fair queuing, so everybody's data gets basically put in buckets, and you make sure that each bucket gets a chance to go first. So this ends up favoring the small buckets. So your VoIP call no longer stutters because your VoIP call doesn't have a lot in it. The packets each get a fair chance to get out. The big bulky download that is designed to max out whatever it's got, but nobody's going to notice that their download was 30 seconds longer when it's a huge multi-gig file. That's okay. So slow that one down a little bit, but you're not trying to do, DPI packet inspection. You're not trying to say, hey, this is YouTube, this is Netflix. You're just treating everything, the better behaved the protocol, the better FQCuddle treats it. And so Cake was FQCuddle on steroids, where Dave and a bunch of other people got together and thought of everything they could possibly come up with to make FQCuddle better. So the algorithm that handles sojourn time in the queue improved substantially. Tucky's thesis, Bufferbloat and Beyond, is great if you want to try and understand how that works. It's math heavy to the point that I have to read it twice every now and again. The fair queuing got extended out to have a better algorithm and also start looking at DSCP tags to tell you when traffic is willing to tell you what it is, allowing it to be divided up into tins with a little bit of preferential treatment for the real time and a little bit of slowing down for bulk traffic. Honestly, the tins are the first thing everybody goes to because it looks, hey, it's classifying my traffic. They're honestly the smallest component to smoothness. They help, but the algorithm, the CUDL algorithm, the Cobalt algorithm that replaced it, and the fair queuing is the real magic. You can you can dump all the traffic into best effort and still see things a whole lot better. And so buffer bloat is problematic because it's not just your router. Your router is talking to the ISP's router, which is talking to the Internet Exchange router, talking to another Internet Exchange router, and so on, all the way to the hosting center. And so there's a good chance that somebody somewhere has buffer bloat, whether And kind of the magic of Cake and FQCuddle is that because they measure timings on packets as they go through,
Hmm.
it's got enough information to start making the streams self-pacing, even though the rest of the network kind of sucks. I mean, you can't do something about a router in Chicago that's decided to drop half of its traffic. That's out of your control.
Right.
But if it's mostly working, then FQCuddle will make your experience a whole lot better just by working with what it sees going through your router
Hmm.
and assuming that everybody else sucks. Now, if you can get that guy in Chicago to also install FQCuddle or Cake, and maybe the hosting provider to provide some buffer improvements, everything gets better for everybody. But one battle at a time. So Bufferbloat, if I had when I give the elevator summary, the summary to some guy in an elevator who wants to know what I do, it's I make sure that you can still make a phone call when your daughter has decided that she wants to download an entire season of Peppa Pig.
Yes, very important. When did this first become a problem? And I'm reminded of TCP slow start. It sounds like it's sort of the similar problem that got fixed back in the 80s. When did it become that TCP slow start was not enough to solve this problem?
Sorry, I'm trying to think of dates. TCP slow start was something that Dave liked to grumble about a lot.
Yes, that's probably why it came to mind.
If I may,
Yes.
basically, Dave realized the problem when he went down to Nicaragua, which was his favorite country, and he was thinking about retiring after like everything what he was doing in the ISP world in the 90s, before the dot-com bubble, or telecom bubble rather, and there was OpenWRT after 2004 already on the market, right? So people were using flashing all the routers with it, and so he saw a problem down there in Nicaragua. So he decided that he will help people. So he was flashing all the routers around him in hotels, in cafes, in homes of people. But the problem was there. So there was a first video conferencing at the time, video calls on Skype, and he saw the issue. Prior to 2010, so maybe 2008, he started to talk with with Jim Geddes online. And Jim was he was the guy, if I remember correctly, that actually coined the term Bufferbloat. And so they started to talk, and they've decided to go after it and to help Jim to fix it.
Yeah, interesting. So that's when Dave got on this. I always think of Dave as the Bufferbloat guy, but Jim was working on it even before then, I suppose.
Yes. So he started early, but Dave picked it up later on. Jim he did a lot of work, and he was kind of burned out. So there was a space for more people to plug in and to actually continue his mission. So if I get the date right, Bufferbloat.net was started at 2010, and so that was the basically the starting, the main starting point for Dave, and Dave started to be a face of it. He was chasing everybody, right, to change stuff for the good of people. And right from the beginning of after Codel, there was FQCodel, and the uptake was really fast, right? Linux, OpenWRT, FreeBSD, quite a lot of stuff, right? And MikroTik as a first, probably the mainstream closed source company, right? So the expectations were that it will be done in no time.
Yeah, it's interesting. I was just linked to RFC 970, which is on packet switches with infinite storage from 1985, right? So people were thinking about this even back then, that this might not be a good thing. I'm not immediately seeing when Bufferbloat was first uttered, when Jim put that word together. But it's such an interesting history, and it's such an interesting problem too. The thing you do to try to fix your router, fix your network switches, introduces its own problem. Interesting stuff. So what's next in the Bufferbloat story? Where are we? Is it a solved problem? If not, what's coming next?
Let's see. Dave got a bunch of enhancements to Cake into production not very long ago at all. They're in next on Linux. Added a good 10% to throughput and fixed a couple of things he called bugs that I honestly, the math behind it is stretching my abilities, but I understood the performance improvements. I actually worked with him a little bit on some of that and pushed that up to Toki. And Linux is putting in eBPF-based QDisk system in NetNext right now. I know there is some talk about getting Cake pushed over to that to make it a little easier to customize, because custom kernel modules have become a little problematic with everybody having signed bootloaders now. That's the immediate focus. I'm trying to fulfill what turned out to be Dave's last wish and fix a memory issue in Cake. It's going to be a while because it's low-level C, and I'm more a low-level Rust guy, but I've been using C since the 90s. It's just I'm Rust. I don't want to say I'm rusty, but you know what I mean. It's, so that's the immediate part of trying to carry on his legacy. But we're also talking to everyone who listened to try and find next generation of researchers, see if we can feed them data, so they can look at the problem, maybe come up with something cool. Like we're working with one PhD researcher right now, giving him vast amounts of TCP retransmit and round trip time estimates from various parts of the world. He's taking a geographic focus, see if there's anything you can do about long distance links that automatically give you some buffering, because it just takes so long to get there in packet terms. But yeah, it's also Dave's really big shoes. It's I don't know if my feet are big enough to fill them, but we're trying.
Yeah.
There is also like at least 3 groups of people that are working on like something that it's called like Cake 2, Cake MQ Cake. So like all the usual suspects that you can think about. Like Dave was scoping something that was supposed to be like, at least the working title was Cake MQ. Then there is Toki and his guys working on improvements, and I heard from Dave that Jonathan Morton was also working on something to improve Cake. So there are things like that, and also we see like all the time new stuff coming to kernel. Like I think it was last week, right, Herbert, that there was that BPF new stuff from America.
Yeah, I'm actually excited to play with that. eBPF is what got me started on Libri QoS, so not too bad for a first project.
Yeah. BPF is something I find fascinating. I've never gotten a chance to play with yet. Maybe one of these days I'll have a project where I get to go in there and fiddle with it. You mentioned something, Herbert, that really got me thinking. This idea of the buffering that's sort of built into long distance links, and you mentioned geography, and I immediately, in my mind, because we talked about Dave being a space nut like I am, is the astronomy or space travel really implications of that. And I don't know if this is something Dave was working on. I'm sure somebody is, but like when you start talking about Well, the ISS for one thing, but that's low Earth orbit. What about when you start talking about putting people on the moon or on Mars? What does the Bufferbloat situation look like? What does the internet look like when you start talking about Mars and links between planets, where just your round trip time of the speed of light is measured in seconds to minutes?
Well, you're not going to be doing interactive video, unfortunately.
Right.
For now on.
I actually read a paper yesterday about how I think it's Nokia are proposing to put a 5G network on the moon.
Mm-hmm. I saw that.
Which is clever because they're going to be having local nodes, you'll get good latency for at least talking to other people on the moon. I know the Deep Space Network is something Dave talked about a lot. It's not something I've ever worked on, but extensions to TCP/IP were made specially for it so that packet latency to Jupiter would work at all. It's a tough one. Because it's the same problem that you have on Earth, but on a bigger scale. You often need a big buffer. I mean, we laugh about we've got the biggest buffers in the industry, but sometimes you need it because when there's packet loss going on, fragments being reassembled and so on, those fragments all have to get into a buffer somewhere so that you can reassemble them. At the same time, there's such a thing as too much buffer, hence Bufferbloat. So I remember Dave telling me when we were chatting one night that in theory FQCuddle would work in space if you changed the RTT parameter to assume that really hideous latency is okay because you can't avoid it.
Right.
I don't know if I don't know quite how far he got. I know he was talking to some people putting satellites up. I know one of the first, actually Starlink was one of the last things he worked on. But Starlink's low-hanging fruit because it's relatively low orbit. The we do know that FQCuddle helps with geostationary orbit, so there's no reason it shouldn't help with the moon. It's just going to be a matter of, unfortunately, experimentation requires that we get to the moon, put up a network, and see what happens. And I will volunteer for that if anybody wants me, by the way.
Yeah, there you go. SCPS, the Space Communications Protocol Specifications. That is at least one of the projects that people are working on to do this, to make extensions on things like FTP and TCP, IPsec even, and what do you do when you're trying to talk between planets. I find this utterly fascinating. This is one of these things that it really does make me it makes me sad that Dave's not going to be around to work on this, because I know this is the kind of thing that he loved to, and we just eat it up.
And can you imagine a three-way handshake with 1 minute delays for each, just to establish the TCP connection? That's pretty nightmarish.
Yeah,
especially if all you want to do is send one packet saying hello.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, so maybe UDP for such situation.
Yeah, my thought on this was always that you would have to have it would be store and forward of some sort, but you would almost have to have two discrete internets that would sync from time to time. Just because doing anything live between here and there is just a total no-go. The round trip time to and from Mars is like 24 minutes. Or at least my quick Google suggests 24 minutes, and none of the internet that we use works on that kind of a round trip time. It just all completely breaks down. So, yeah, I find this super fascinating, and I look forward to actually being able to run the experiment and see what happens, see if we can make it work.
Do you remember FidoNet from the BBS days? It always makes me think of that, because the process of sending email was you sent it by modem to your local hop, and it would at some point during the night send it off to the next exchange, and your email might take 3 days to make its way across the world, but it would get there eventually.
Yep.
And so I could see something like that working. And the old network news protocol too.
Yeah. Yep. Interesting stuff. But it's not quite that extreme, but it's almost going to go back to the days of Sail when you didn't get any updates until the ship came into harbor that had the latest news dispatches.
Right.
It's a fascinating thought that as we kind of expand the human race out, it's going to be to some extent a return to that sort of a paradigm.
At the same time, I still can't believe I wake up and see videos of a probe crashing into a moon off of Saturn. It's and that's old tech. It launched years ago.
Right. Yeah. Fascinating stuff. What is speaking of all this space stuff? What is the current status of Starlink with the OpenWRT version and Cake or Codel built into it?
Right. So in the beginning of March, they finally publicly announced that last year, I'm sorry, beginning of March 2024, they publicly announced that they implemented FQ Codel. So Dave was ecstatic.
It's great.
And it really cut down the latency, and the goal was 20 milliseconds. And in certain instances, they are able to achieve that, which is incredible.
Mm-hmm.
And they also have like airtime fairness and some other stuff, I was told, that Dave was fighting for. There is one particular amazing guy that got into Starlink. And he's one of Dave's apostles. Nathan Owens. So if we can credit someone from that is on the inside right now, it's certainly him. Like he was really active for years on Starlink mailing lists and various Bufferbloat mailing lists. And like I don't know for sure, but he might be probably the last drop to really make it happen.
Yeah.
After like all those Dave's rants and emails and songs and everything.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember. I'm trying to find it actually. Apparently, I wrote a Hackaday article about Bufferbloat several years ago, and I think it was Dave that sent me an email, and it was like, who was it? One of the guys from Doom. Oh, I can't remember his name at the moment. Anyway,
John Carmack.
I think it was John Carmack. Forwarded my Hackaday article onto Elon Musk, and he's just like, "Okay, that's cool. That's a neat bit of news to wake up to in the morning." I'm gonna see if I can find that email. I've got it here somewhere. I've got to get the right search term going. But that's one of those things that, for one thing, this space that I found myself in between doing Hackaday and getting to talk with people like you guys and people like Dave, it's really cool, the connections I've been able to make. But also, it's kind of a good feeling that like the fact that Starlink is getting better, I would like to think I've had at least a tiny little part in making that happen.
Yes, like pretty much everybody that was like tweeting to Elon, talking to Starlink, sending emails, singing songs, using Starlink. That was the push from all places, and
Yes.
it was really necessary for something like that to happen. So
Yeah.
John Carmack was actually backing Dave on Patreon for a long time. Big supporter of the Bufferbloat thing. That was one of the things I couldn't believe was after we posted the announcement, I opened my inbox and I see email from Vince Cerf, Jim Geddes, John Carmack, and it's like any other occasion I'd have been jumping up and down fanboying.
I may have done a little bit of that, yes. Yeah, I found the email. Dave emailed me back in August of 2022. He wanted to know if I could see stats on Hackaday. And then he says, "You'll be pleased to know John Carmack read your article and forwarded it to Musk." That was one of those happy little dances for me. I got a lot of pleasure out of that. Really
well deserved.
Yeah, it was fun. It was a lot of fun. All right. So Starlink is doing well. one of the other things I remember about Dave is he, would you call it filk? The music. He was definitely a music fan, but it was very much his own sort of take on doing things. Like It GPLs Me is one of the songs that I remember. He had a sticker on his guitar case that said
this machine kills Vogons.
Yes, that was it. He said he was inspired by the "This machine kills fascists," but didn't want to quite take that. I forget exactly what he said, but he went with Vogons instead. That was sort of a quirky part of his personality, wasn't it? Do you know where that came from? Would you call that filk? Would we call that filk? Is it like a tech version of filk?
Yeah. He was writing in that style, so it's like folk music, but in sci-fi. Mm-hmm. So like everything tech wise, people like Dave were like writing lyrics down, and it was like always a great success.
Yeah, you could always tell he really enjoyed it. He had fun with it.
Yeah, at the events, at the podcasts, or as an outro or as an intro at the webinar even.
Yeah. That's good. Mashed Potato, one of our listeners, has a suggestion that be the show title for today. This machine kills Vogons. I like that. I think that
absolutely.
I think that would be an appropriate way to honor Dave.
I think we've got pictures of Dave busking at least 20 major conventions.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And also like close to the actual SpaceX.
Yep, that makes sense. That's something that he would definitely do. All right, so what else? Are there some memories that you guys have of Dave that we want to touch on that we haven't? Anything comes to mind?
Yeah, go ahead, Herbert.
Oh, okay. You know, I just really a human memory. We were having a LibreQOS staff meeting, and my 3-year-old ran upstairs, jumped onto my lap, and introduced herself. And Dave just lit up and interacted with her, made her feel like the center of the room. And we stopped talking for long enough that she ran over to her little toy piano. And she's a really smart kid. She hit demo mode and mimed playing Fur Elise. And Dave is just egging her on, encouraging her. She goes down, tells me what a great kid I have. Meeting continues. But, you know, I've talked to a lot of people for whom the 3-year-old invading is cute for 10 seconds, but get rid of her. Mm-hmm. Dave was not like that. Dave really just was a warm, kind person who would make time for you. We've had emails from people saying, "Hey, you know, I had a problem and Dave appeared out of the blue, fixed everything, and swooped away again," and that's just kind of who he was.
Yep. Frank, did you have something similar?
Yeah, probably the time that I cherished the most, that I was lucky to spend with Dave, was in Mexico after Wi-Fi Now Global Summit in Cancun in 2022. Like the rest of the tourist guys, they already left, but I was still there, staying with Dave for a couple of days, and we spent it, playing his guitar, singing, sharing a lot of songs, stories, and also working on tourist routers, because Dave was showing me a lot of stuff. He was measuring things with Flint and other tools, mm-hmm. and he was showing me things that should be improved, and we were just like enjoying time, walking around the beaches, talking about things, talking about life, and that these were the things that like he was able to like Herbert said, he was able to connect to small 3 years old kid, mm-hmm. and also like to the biggest names in the industry, and also to like some strange guy from Europe that is working on routers and want to learn stuff. So that was like a bigger than life type of character, like Dave was, and it's amazing to go to all the media and to read comments from people, and it's overwhelming. And I do believe that he's like up there, up there somewhere, and he sees stuff, and like he likes to say things like per aspera ad astra, right? So that's something that we can say to him for sure.
I'm going to start introducing myself as some strange guy from Oklahoma that works on tech and likes to learn stuff. I think that's great.
Right. It is. Can I read a poem?
Sure.
Yeah. So Dave, back then when the work on Bufferbloat was going strong, Jim Geddes, John Morton, and many other people, but they were working with Dave, and there was a rewritten poem from John Godfrey Sachs, and the new version that Jonathan Morton and Jim Geddes put together was named "The Blind Man and the Elephant," and Dave read the poem at a couple of podcasts, and I would like to read it for him once again.
Sure.
I'm sorry.
Sorry.
It was 6 men of Interstan to learning much inclined, who sought to fix the internet with market share in mind, that evil of congestion might soon be left behind. Definitely, the pipemen say, why the link we out, for congestion occurs only when the bandwidth exceeds baud. If only the reverse were true, we would all live like lords. But count the cost, if bandwidth had no end, money men say, but count the cost, if bandwidth had no end, money men say, perpetual upgrade cycle through madness light that way. From diff serve land, their tried and true solution now departs. Some packets are more equal than their true lesser counterparts. But choosing which is which presents new problems in all arts. Every packet is sacred, cries the data center clan, demanding bigger buffers for their ever faster LAN. To them, a millisecond is eternity to plan. The end-to-end principles guides a certain band of men detecting when congestion strikes, inferring bandwidth then. Alas, all methods outcompete their algorithmic maven. The isolationists prefer explicit signaling, ensuring each and every flow is equally a king. If only all the other men would listen to them sing. And so these men of industry disputed loud and long, each in his own opinion, exceeding stiff and strong. True, each was partly in the right, yet mostly in the wrong. So oft in technologic wars, the disputants I been rail on in utter ignorance of which each other mean, and prate about an internet not one of them has seen.
You know, I was thinking about it, my experience with Dave. I'm pretty sure I also ended up rubbing shoulders with him when the FCC was about to tell people they had to lock down routers. That actually happened right about the time the Terra Omnia came out, if I remember correctly. It was right in that same time period. And I didn't really get to know him then, but I'm pretty sure we did end up, we were at least on some of the same mailing lists and cared about some of the same things. So yeah, and that I went to my email address that I've had for the longest time. I've never done this before. This is the first time I've done it. And I searched for Dave's name, and now I'm going back to like the oldest email that I've got that had him in it. And I see some from like 2011 when I was on the
so cool.
OpenWRT mailing list, and he had something he was trying to add to it. You know, it just for so long, like we've been kind of involved in the same things, and that's just neat to me. He's going to be missed for sure.
Right. And you have mentioned FCC, right? So Dave was picking up the fight, like every time when it was really needed, and Windsurf and others, like were always ready to help, right? Because this kind of stuff, like open source, it's really power to the people. And Dave, he was a strong believer in this principle in pretty much everything. And like some of the other QoE solutions on the market do DPI, right? And we will never do that. And so, like, you know, these are the things like guiding principles that Dave had. And like I like to say that he never sold his soul, right? I don't have like anything against working for a big company, right? And it's necessary, right? But there must be some people in the industry that are guiding, you know, they are the guiding lights, basically, lightning houses somewhere, and they are doing these like not so well paid jobs, but they are actually changing the industry, and we all know the meme of that one guy in Nebraska that's basically holding the weight of the whole stack. Basically, Dave was something like that for way too many companies.
Yeah. So that's funny. I use that meme all the time because we, the XKCD comic, because we interview those people. That's what we're all about here on FLOSS Weekly. Dave was definitely one of those people. I kind of suspect that was actually written about the NTP guy, because so many things work on NTP, and for the longest time it was literally one guy. I think he may have been in Nebraska. I don't remember for sure. But yeah, it's definitely true about Dave and you guys and a lot of other people that we talk to.
Yeah, you know, it's funny. I went on the Arden Labs, that's the company I teach Rust through, Slack, and mentioned that, you know, my friend Dave had passed away. Nobody had the faintest idea who Dave Taht was. I mentioned FQCuddle. They're all a bunch of Kubernetes nerds. And everybody's like, you knew that guy? And it's like, wait, you know, I've told you that before, but you didn't pick the best time to be interested. But it's, you know, it's fun. You know, I've talked to bunches of people. It's like, not that many people knew Dave, but everybody used his stuff.
Yep. He was involved with other stuff too. I'm looking through my notes. He worked for One Laptop Per Child. He did obviously a lot of OpenWRT stuff. He worked on the Zero WRT project, Make Wi-Fi Fast. As we said, he did some stuff with the FCC, trying to talk them out of their insane ideas. All kinds of stuff. He was working for open access in academia. Lots and lots of things that, you know, I think most of us sort of hacker types, we get that they're good ideas. He was one of us. I don't know how else to put it. He was our people, right? And will be greatly missed. All right. Is there anything that we didn't talk about, either with Memories of Dave or the future of Libri QoS or where it's at now, that I should have asked you all about? And I know that's a hard problem because you got to think about all the things we did talk about and your list of things you wanted to talk about.
Maybe AI stuff, Herbert. What do you think?
Sure.
You know, it's Dave was funny with AI. When ChatGPT 4 came out, he asked it the question we all ask: who is Dave Taht? And it gave a pretty random answer. So we went over and tried Google Gemini, and it said Dave Taht is a fictional character from The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy.
That's right. I remember seeing that.
Yeah, and he still has that. I think it's either like hero picture on the LinkedIn or Twitter X.
Yes. I remember when he tweeted about that was ChatGPT's understanding of him.
And basically, today, the former tourist CEO asked about Dave, ChatGPT, and the answer was really good. And he sent it over to me, and I was like, "Oh, thank you. That's going well."
Yeah, that's funny. Did Dave use any of the AI tools? I know some of us. So, for example, myself, I wouldn't say I'm morally against it, but like in practice, I'm pretty strictly against using AI tools for any of my stuff. I would like all of my work to actually be my work, and I don't necessarily put that on anybody else. That's where I'm at right now. Did Dave make use of any of them, or was he kind of a purist as well? Do you guys know?
A little bit. Now I use them because I love trying new stuff.
Sure.
I don't really let AI write anything more complicated than HTML form, but and that's because I could do it. I know how to debug it, but it can do it faster.
Right.
So I know Dave fired up Cursor, gave it a Linux kernel module, asked it to make some changes, and we spent the best part of a day laughing at what it was trying to do.
It sounds about right.
We struggled. We spent an afternoon once struggling to try and get Emacs to talk to a AI code completion service that somebody, I think it may have been Copilot, said that he could have for free. So he was like, I want to try this out. Uh-huh. And his conclusion was not positive. We spent more time setting it up than we did throwing it away. It's kind of funny. It autocompletes HTML really well, JavaScript and Python pretty well, and it sees C the way I first did when I came from Pascal back in the 90s as a random stream of characters, and that's what it autocompletes. You just get this random barf of letters that might do something.
No, AI, that's Perl. Come on.
Oh, right, once Perl. I'm glad I don't have that job anymore.
Yeah. Fun. All right. Well, that's actually a good segue. Let me ask each of you as we wrap the show. What's your favorite text editor and scripting language? We'll start with Frank.
I don't code at all, which is really weird thing to say on podcasts like this.
Oh, that's fine.
And I the closest that I ever get to something like that was that when I was trying to get my CCNA, and there were some command line stuff. So I never actually did any programming yet, but I would like to try to understand stuff more on a deeper level. However, when I'm thinking about it, some of the things that Robert, Herbert, and Dave were doing, I was not able, and I'm still not able to understand on that deep level. Mm-hmm. But I consider it as some kind of advantage even in some parts of my job, mm-hmm. because sometimes it's a rabbit hole and it's easy to get stuck. And to discuss things, and it flies over me, so I can focus on what it delivers to the customer. Mm-hmm. So that's the story that I'm always saying to myself, and I hope that So basically, I use Notes app on my Mac.
If you ever decide to learn Rust, I know a guy that's pretty okay at teaching it.
Yeah, probably some Herbert, I guess.
Yeah, one of those Herbert guys. and you, sir, what is your favorite text editor and scripting language?
Oh boy, I get asked this a lot, and I learned the hard way. Never try and teach a major workshop with Vim, because you will spend more time answering questions about your text editor than you will actually getting to teach. So if I'm in public, I'm using Rust Rover, because JetBrains sponsor my Arden Labs talks.
Okay.
If I'm teaching a private class, I'm using either Rust Rover or Visual Studio Code, again, because I don't want the editor to be in the way.
Sure.
When nobody's watching, I'm running NeoVim with Rust Analyzer, mm-hmm. And a ridiculously customized color scheme because I've finally found a color scheme that's easy on the eyes for 8-hour sessions, and I'm sticking with it.
Yeah. Yeah. Scripting language. And so here you have to ask yourself, does Rust count as a scripting language?
Not really. I mean, it compiles. It takes a while to compile. There is a crazy program. There is a crazy project out there that lets you do shebang bin Rust and have it work, but I wouldn't recommend it. I actually like Python these days. I was a Perl guy for a long time. Robert has converted me to the Python gang, so.
Yep.
And I think I remember answer for Dave, and that was Emacs and
right.
And Python, I guess.
Yeah, it was
Emacs was his operating system. He once told me he was on a little Chromebook, and it took 2.5 hours to finish loading his customized Emacs setup.
That sounds about right. Oh, goodness. All right. Lots of fun. Thank you guys both. Thank you guys both for being here. We appreciate it. And it was good to chat with you both.
Oh, thank you for having us.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah. Glad to be able to do it. All right. If you want more of me. I tell you what, we're going to let each of you plug something if you want to. I don't have a co-host. Normally I would have a co-host plug something, and I don't have it, so you guys are the co-hosts today too. So, Frank, is there anything you wanted to plug before we let folks go?
Absolutely. LibreQOS.io, and there are all the links people need. There is a way how to contact us, contact me. There is, I think there are our LinkedIn's. Yeah, so people can reach me out.
Yeah, and Herbert.
My most recent book, Advanced Hands-on Rust, went into final beta yesterday. Should be actually in print and ebook print. I get paid a lot more for ebooks, so in digital print is obviously what I should be pushing. But I love physical books. And if anybody wants to chat with me, I'll be at RustConf and this September in Seattle.
Oh, cool. Yeah, very good. Is there, and I didn't warn you guys I was going to ask this, but it just comes to mind. Is there some sort of nonprofit or like a memorial fund if somebody wanted to give something in memory of Dave? Is there something you would recommend?
Well, we don't know of any yet.
Okay.
We've been talking with Dave's family.
Okay.
They have a lot going on because his mother also passed away recently.
Yeah.
So as soon as we know, we'll make sure it's up on the memorial page.
Okay.
Can I plug in Dave's mother?
Sure.
So Dave's mother was a really good programmer at IBM. And they also like to play a lot of music together. So they were like talking about technical stuff, but also about music. So she was probably someone that really influenced his like development, and
yeah, I'm sure.
that leads him to this Bufferbloat world in the end.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, interesting. Good stuff. All right. If we do get an answer on that, I will try to get the eventual article and such updated with that information. But we'll try to get it shared out. Again, thank you guys. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Jonathan.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right. If you want to find more of me, there is Hackaday. We appreciate Hackaday being the home of FLOSS Weekly these days. I've got the security column that goes live every Friday morning, and the articles in between, things that I find interesting, sometimes Bufferbloat, lots of times other things. You can find that on Hackaday. I've also got the Untitled Linux Show over at twit.tv/ULS. Make sure to check that out as well for all of your Linux news and tips and analysis, and we have a lot of fun there. We sure appreciate everybody that's here, both those that watch us live and get us on the download, and we will see you next week on FLOSS Weekly.